Welcome to the Black Science Podcraft. This is a cross between a podcast and a presentation where you'll have one speaker delivering a concept, a theory, an idea to the other. So the goal is to allow you to critically analyse these points and to see if they hold any weight. So why black science? So there's a few reasons behind the term black science. Stay tuned to find out. So on the last episode, we discussed what leadership is and what does it matter. And why does it matter who we call a leader? We explored our complex relationships with leadership, from craving strong figures to questioning even if we need them. And in part 2, we're going to still, follow that on, and we're going to discuss the current state of black leadership and asking, is there a leadership crisis in terms of the way that we mistakenly use popularity and visibility, and we see that as leadership. We look at how the westernized individualism has shaped our values and the danger of charisma and without accountability. And we've looked at grassroots issues and how some of our leaders within our community, but then we've also looked at it internationally, and we've looked at leaders like case studies like Dr. Umar Johnson, and how his lack of transparency and some performative things that he's placed out there as a leader, it could be damaging to our community. So within that, we discussed a little bit about ego as well. And how we need to separate true leadership from influence and branding in some cases. And I look forward to going into that a bit more in this discussion. So, yeah.
Let's do in this talk. So, do we need leadership? Obviously, in the last part, I kind of made my statement about my dislike of the term black leader, right? My logic wasn't that it's a pointless term. It's just that it's used in pointless ways. We use it in this way that is kind of pointless, and we kind of use it as a weapon to kind of put down people we don't think is doing it right. That's just kind of the only way we use it. That's kind of, we refer to the old school guys back in the day, but when we use it now, it's kind of for a negative use.
And I think it's seen as negative because I think we do end up comparing our modern leaders with what we had in the 60s, 70s and the 80s. And I think that's dangerous because I think it's a very different time period. I think as communities, we was probably a little bit more coherent and cohesive as communities 20, 30 years ago, at least a few generations ago. So I think, but I was going to start with 2 definitions, which I think is quite important because I didn't do this in the last time, but leadership definition and then black leadership definition. And we can talk about what the differences are briefly. So what we've got here for leaders, just leadership in general, is the ability to guide and influence a group of people toward a common goal by providing direction, motivating individuals and making decisions. Now that's quite broad, but when you look at the definition of black leadership, it says black leadership involves with a pro-black authentic approach that dismantles oppressive systems and empowers communities through collective care and decisive decision making. So I think the idea of that every black leader needs to take on a pro-black, anti-oppressive stance is, I think, why we end up comparing them to the Malcolms, the Martins, the Patrice Lumumbas, the Nkrumahs, when I think actually politically we was in a more cohesive state as a people. I think our values were probably a bit different a few generations ago, even down to our family values, I think. And I think modern technology, the emergence of online popularity and celebrities, and I think that's changed the way we view and expect our leaders to interact in a wider way.
Yeah. But when you say that there was more community or more, the value system is different, I think that definition of a black leader, I kind of agree with it, because what it's saying is important in this context of that term is that it relates to us as a people having a particular struggle that we're trying to overcome, and those that are trying to help direct us and lead us as a people against that specific struggle. It isn't just leadership in general. It ain't teaching you how to make money. It ain't just for the sake of making money. It ain't teaching you just for the sake of you being smarter. It's literally, in this, you use the term pro-black, but we know that's like a Pan-African kind of language. That is the idea that we're trying to better us as a people. and that's what I'm trying to lead you with. In whichever way I think, this is what I'm trying to do as a black leader, right? I'm trying to guide us in a way somehow forward as a people to overcome what we've gone through. The word oppression and that was used, right? So before, what I would say about back then is they was very aware of their situation as an oppressed people. It was very in their face. So
we had overt racism.
It was very overt and very systemically oppressed overtly. So it was like the need for this kind of direction was obvious to everybody. So it was easier to fall in line and lead to these type of characters that we're referring to, right? Whereas now, you know, we've integrated and we've got an integration, this kind of logic and culture. A lot of, like I was speaking to a sister the other day, she was saying a lot of the young kids of this generation don't even see racism. They don't really, it's not a thing they understand. Racism for them is just a simple someone using the N-word, just insulting them. It isn't all this systemic stuff. So we don't have that view that it's necessary to do something about this whole issue.
That's like because they retitled it as urban. Everybody became urban at one period of time.
That's facts. They it's true. That term allows us to kind of not see, because everyone can be urban.
Communities,
everyone's urban.
And then we're probably the last generation that remembers the Stephen Lawrence and the kind of the reporting around systemic racism. And I think that the idea of systemic racism has probably fallen away from public discourse. We don't really discuss systemic racism
purposefully.
And that's even seen as a negative thing.
And it's purposefully been done like that via the media.
So, do we need leadership? And I think in this context, we mean this type of black leader. Do we need that?
I definitely think we need leadership. I think the broad terms and the way we expect leaders to conduct themselves, I don't necessarily think we need to. I mean, I think ultimately, good leaders come from organisation institutions as opposed to good public speakers. So I do think we do need directions in which we need to be moved towards, but I don't know if we need a generic black leader in the way that we have in the past.
So what it is that we had like one person leading. I think we need many different ones, isn't it? So we discussed that, didn't we, in terms of what it takes to be a leader, and well, we're going to get into it a bit more, aren't we, in terms of the organisational side of it, or...
What I would say is, sometimes, or a lot of times, especially nowadays, because of what you just said, a lot of our people, they don't really see, they wouldn't say yes to that question. They say, what for? Everyone just needs to get money. Again, our values today don't really align in that sense. We don't really see this thing to unify and fight against. It's not really like that. That's not really people's idea. And Garvey, Garvey? Yeah, like, I don't agree with everything he says, but sometimes he does speak like everybody. Sometimes a clock can be right twice a day, right? A broken clock is right twice a day. He gives a good summary. I've got to find the post, but have you ever heard one of these posts where he summarizes the issues of black people, generally, globally, wherever we are? Our economic position.
Did we not use that in one of our previous ones?
Garvey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying, did we not put a clip in one of our... No, we haven't.
No,
okay. Maybe we made reference to it. Okay.
No, I don't think we have.
Okay.
But yeah, like, other people have done it, but I like how he did. I've got to find it, where he was trying to explain to somebody why it is that black people have an issue. Because again, a lot of us just say there's not a real issue, just get money, you're all right. And then, economically speaking, we're at the bottom, wherever we are in the world. Education system, we're at the bottom. Criminal system, we're at the bottom. He just lays out the fundamental situation, objectively speaking, statistically speaking. It's empirical. This is like a feeling thing. He's not talking about how people treat or call us names and stuff. He's talking empirically, statistically. We're at the bottom in all these marketable terms. And then if you just want to talk nationally, we know our nations are not doing the best, right? Economically speaking, governmentally speaking, so many levels of not where they should be. So clearly the answer to that question, if you look at that objectively, is things need to be different. And if things need to be different, like, something has to lead that way. Some sort of change has to occur. It's not, everyone doesn't just change. Human nature requires a direction to be definitely, someone to pull you in a direction. That's how, even if a whole people do agree on what should be done or what they want done, they still need somebody to galvanize that emotion in a particular direction or a group. Because leadership, again, it doesn't have to be individual, it could be groups. It could be a group of individuals, it could be several different individuals, but that still would mean leadership.
You need one.
Yeah, and I think we tend to just galvanize around popular trends, or when something happens, an issue might happen, you might find some popularist talking points that will come out of it, and then people will galvanize around a specific issue. So Black Lives Matter is a perfect where you had loads of people speaking, and then that the commitment to change dwindles over time. And I think that might be the need for kind of more effective black leadership, or people that can kind of keep the momentum. But I think that probably harks down to our inability to kind of build sustainable organizations that are meant to drive some of these movements forward, as opposed to kind of one individual who might speak eloquently in front of camera but might not necessarily have the requisite actions to build an organization that can kind of network, not just locally but globally and nationally, to be fair, to kind of around specific objectives, like what is it we want to achieve from the specific issue. And I think we fail at that point.
Yeah, I've said it before, exactly what you just said there. Basically, we all, when something happens, we get emotional, get emotive and reactionary. So we react when something big happens. As soon as that emotion dissipates, the action dissipates, and then we go back to square one. So the reactionary logic of all of this stuff only matters when something bad happens, right, is problematic. So you're right, we need institutions that are doing the work when it's all peaceful, when it's all calm and nothing's going on. That's when the work's going on. It's not just, you don't wait for a fire to create a fire truck. And if you get what I mean,
fire safety protocols.
Exactly. You create the protocol, the fire engine, you hire firemen, all of it. When there's no fire, and then you train them and they practice and they all of this is waiting. Assumption is there's going to be a fire because you understand fires happen. It's like we don't move like that.
Indeed, this is the same aspect of the struggle that we saw in the 60s, instinctive struggle. Thus, if we're to draw a conclusion just from this aspect of struggle, that is to say the people struggling unconsciously, unplanned, spontaneously, and instinctively, that since people have an instinctive love of freedom, everywhere they will struggle for freedom. The history of Africans in America prove this clearly. Nowhere have they consciously organized to make advance. All the advances they have made have been unconscious, instinctive, and spontaneous. Certainly you can understand what will happen when these people become thoroughly organized. The lessons then must be clear. Human beings, like animals of the lower form, have instincts. Human beings, unlike animals of the lower form, have the ability to think and reason. The lesson then must be clear. All of our instincts at all times, under all conditions, must be governed by reason. The instinctive struggle of the 60s, the spontaneous struggle of the 60s, the unconscious struggle of the 60s, if they are to serve to us as lessons, must come to be qualified in conscious movements, rational movements, and planned movements. This then seems to me to be the first lesson that we would have to acquire from the 60s. Of course, the capitalist system lies all the time. Some people think it lies some of the time, but it lies all of the time. And in lying, it has an attempt to make us think that in the 60s we were an organized people and everything was all right. We were not organized. We were a mobilized people. Thus are we to get a heavy lesson from the 60s. The lessons must be clear. A mobilized people, really, an instinctive people, a spontaneous people who struggle like animals. Even if we take the example of Miami, we can see it clearly here. In Miami, we're oppressed just like we are everywhere else. But we wait until an outside force provokes us into action. Everywhere you will see us, it is always an outside force that provokes the African masses into action, even on the campus here. I told some brothers the other day, you want to organize all the African students on the campus? I can do it overnight. All I got to do is write a filthy sign, derogatory against them, put them on the campus. Next day, they all come to the meeting. And one of the errors that must be corrected, a people struggling for their freedom cannot depend upon an external force to push them into motion. They must have an internal dynamism of their own. Consequently, the African masses, in drawing lessons from the 60s, must come clearly to understand that they must have a dynamism in their hands to tell them when to attack the enemy, how to attack the enemy, and where to carry their struggle. Thus, the 60s must come to be qualified from a mobilized struggle to an organized struggle. We say they fight like animals. You back an animal up against the wall, and the animal, even a rabbit, will come out striking at you until you back up. Thus Africans, once provoked, come out striking wildly as they do in Miami. The police retreats, give them some concessions, they sit down, and then the police comes back with more repression. None of the gains made by a mobilized people can be maintained. It is only an organized people who can make gains and use those gains to further their struggle. Indeed, the gains made by the 60s, since they were made by an unorganized people in a state of mobilization, have not been used by the people, but in fact used by the enemy against the people.
Preparation for crisis, rather than responding to crisis.
That's true. Yeah, reactive.
So then the question is, why are we lacking this type of leadership? Why?
I think for some of the same reason you mentioned earlier, people fear the expectation. So the term black leadership is a big term, and I think people will shy away from that term because they know it puts a target on their back, and it means they leave themselves open to what they might see as unfair criticism. Or criticism that kind of devalues the purpose of what they're trying to achieve. But then also I think as well the ego of us as individuals will mean that we don't take on criticism well. So the idea that if you put yourself out there in a certain kind of way,
people don't like it.
Us as a people are just going to be critical. And I think that it's something about the individual that always needs to kind of poke holes at someone that's trying to do good, or they're not doing this, they're not doing enough of that. And I see it myself. Like I do see the way that people will present themselves in the public sphere does grate me at points. And I think that there's a fine line between ego, narcissism and confidence, and I think no one gets it right 100% of the time, but I think it's very difficult to have one leader that is able to kind of tap into all of those kind of characteristics that we think we want to see in leadership. I think we need to, I would argue that we need strong organizations locally that network with organizations nationally that then network in a strategic, structural way with organizations globally. And I think we're lacking those organizations and structures as opposed to kind of leaders.
You see what you just said there, yeah? So yeah, obviously that's the problem, but how would you get to a situation when you have this hierarchy of institutions all with this kind of similar type logic if the values of the community, the larger community, national, international, and native, are not really aligned in themselves? If you don't have so I'm saying the issue is the values, isn't it? Like we don't value this particular struggle, goal, fight, whatever you want to call it. We don't value that, right? Again, we're integrationists. We seek to get money. Our culture now doesn't have this as something at the forefront of something we desire. It's not. Everybody just wants to make and the most positive logic you could say, everybody just wants to be successful. Yeah. To frame it in the nicest way. Everybody just wants to be successful, and everybody's just going about trying to make themselves successful.
Individualism.
Yeah, we're all individualistic. I'm trying to frame it in the nicest way, but that is what it actually boils down to. We don't have this community logic. There's no goal for the greater good of us as a people. Most of us we given up on that logic. The amount of times I've heard a black person say, "Oh, black people won't ever, so I'm not even going to bother." Or they say another one where, "Call me when black people get serious. Like until then, I'm doing my thing." I've heard that several times.
That's true.
Bag of time. Call me when it gets serious. Because the idea is no one's on it. So why should I be? I'm just going to get mine and do my thing. So we're always very individualistic. So with this being the general culture, the general way we think, all for ourselves, just want to be successful. I just want to be successful. When that's the goal, why are we going to create one institution, let alone a hierarchy of institutions at the domestic, national and international level? How's that ever going to happen?
I think even on an individual level, we've got to look at how our children are educated. Because if you speak about kind of the need to change culture or to change the mind state of a people that can kind of commit to a movement, we've got to look at kind of how our children are educated. Like I think that statistically, most teachers are white women between the age of like 25 and 40.
Yeah, I heard this.
So I think that aspect of how our children are educated. I went to a Pan-African Saturday school.
I didn't.
There are very few Pan-African, like big up to Tubada, but there's very few Pan-African leaning Saturday schools now that will bring communities of young people together that are educated with a common goal or a common aim or common understanding of identity first.
So important.
Like most parents will see education as like a form of childcare where like
Get out, man.
and I think it was Dr. Tori Amos Wilson that said that a child that's educated just in school is an uneducated child. But I think that comes back to our ideals of wanting to kind of be wealthy or wanting to be individual kind of. As long as I'm doing okay, then that's fine. And I think that even comes down to how we educate and raise the family unit, where children aren't probably made aware of systemic racism. You might get it a little bit in Black History Month. It's not spoken about in the house, and it definitely is not spoken about in the school.
And also the younger ones don't really want to hear about it because of that urban culture when they're brought up in those educational systems, because they all see each other as one. So it makes them feel uncomfortable to have these kind of discussions of black empowerment, you know, and seeing themselves and where they come from. They're very disconnected to it, the younger ones.
I think you've got second and third generation immigration. I think, again, as soon as you get to kind of first generation immigration, I think parents who've come over here will make sure that their children understand what we've come from and the need. But I think that need is more around just get a degree, get a good job,
just be successful,
and that's it.
And that point that you said about in education, the white ladies being the ones, you know, even when they're delivering their presentations, if you go into those institutions, schools, there's never our ethnicity represented in leadership. Yeah, so the children don't aspire because they don't see it.
Yes.
Then the materials that they place out to teach the children aren't inclusive, and if they are inclusive, they're with a negative connotation.
There's a stronger drive for LGBT within the school system than there is for cultural awareness.
Yeah, and being what's the word? Inclusive, or having these non-biases, but then they push for, you know, other groups ahead of us, even with knowing that we're underrepresented, because they actually have these different courses that they place out for us to not be now. So it's all systematical.
It is.
And as you said, I think education and representation.
It's facts. I said it last time though, we know these things. It's our problem. We should deal with it because we know these things. It's all well and good assuming that the world should learn and be better. The society we learn should be better, and even telling them to be better, tell them how to be better. That's all well and good, but fundamentally hoping that they're going to do it the way we want them to do it is a bit naive, right? Just respectfully, it's a bit naive. We need to do that. We need to do it. Look at the...
Well, like too bad, I like what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be more two-badders. Yeah. It's not even that hard. Like my little program, Playboys Boot Camp. Oh, yeah. It's a little thing. Well. Yeah, it's a little thing. It's easy.
And the thing is,
it's so easy. Man don't need a lot to do something.
That, you know, the programs that we have, even though they are of African, you know, going into our community, they're not the way that it is in the other way. They're not non-biased for other people coming in and learning either. That's what I've seen as well. You know, you'll see different races coming into our groups to learn and educate, actually sometimes more than our own.
I don't want to get onto the don't do that talk, but we don't do that. But point blank is we're supposed to really accept the reality of the world that we're in and work with that reality in mind. So we're supposed to create this situation where we know they're not learning what we want them to learn. We know they're not exposed to what we want them to be exposed to. So we should expose them to what we want them to be exposed to.
Apart from the month of October.
Yeah, but I'll tell you the sad thing about that, because the sad thing about that is in that month we still want them to do it, which is the problem. This mindset is problem. And again, this links back to the fundamental issue I'm saying is our value system. We don't value this modality. We don't value it. We're too integrationist in the sense that we don't want to do that. We don't. Jewish people, in Stanford, they have their own everything. Yeah. Right? China have Chinatown. Go to Green Street in East London, right? Even Poplar Market, right?
Southall,
right? Every community, and a lot of them are very proud to say they're British, very proud British immigrants, whatever you want to call it, but they still understand that my community, I have to do for my community, I have to build it, because this is what's required to build us and make us as individuals strong. This is the thing. This logic isn't actually about it's a bit selfish, because you do for the community because it makes you stronger. It's not really about being selfless, do it for everyone else. No, because once my community I'm good, I'm better off, I have more power, I have more sway, I have more options, everything works better for me. When you're on your own and it goes wrong, curtains.
Yeah, and I think even language, when you look at the communities that we've raised just now, you can probably go to some of these communities and survive without speaking a word of English.
They do.
They've created a bubble so they can do that. They can bring a family member they've never even met. Someone can marry a family. They've got a whole community. Whole bunch of people that will settle them, like you say, they won't even have to speak the language.
And then the institutions have to be inclusive to that and, say, do you want a translator? They have to be inclusive. Accessibility.
And then they'll have political representation as well,
because they
on a local level that helps lobby for kind of legislation change on a wider level. I mean,
this chart to me represents beautiful, educated, moneyed black people all over America. It could represent black organizations, it could represent black churches, it could represent black social and civic organizations. And what you will notice about these beautiful black people all over America is that everybody is doing their own thing, caught up in a Eurocentric value of rugged individualism, having forgotten that it takes a village to raise a child. There is no power here, brothers and sisters. There is no power here. Power is most effective concentrated. You can take a 55-gallon drum of water, spill it over, it will disperse, find its own level, and eventually evaporate. You can take that same 55-gallon drum of water, put it under pressure, put a lid on it, put a hose in it, put a nozzle on the end of that hose, and it can cut concrete. There is no power with us being disconnected. See, there's nothing wrong with dispersion. I live in Cleveland, you live in Atlanta. We have folk in the Caribbean, we have folk in Africa. That's dispersion. That's okay, but we do not have to be disconnected. We are a disconnected people. We are powerless in disconnection. This is where all the power is. You see? This is where all the power is. Whether you are at the center of your own network or part of someone else's network, this is where the power is. There's a beautiful African proverb that says, when spiders unite, they can tie up a lion. When we connect, because we are disconnected, we're disconnected from those of like mind. We're disconnected from the best practices in our community. I don't care what it is that you want to do, what profession you want to engage in, what business you want to get into. I can introduce you to brothers and sisters all over America they are doing it to death. You just don't know who they are. You are disconnected from them. There is no power in disconnection. Okay? When we connect, we prevent interlopers from coming into our communities and taking and destroying at will.
All right, George.
Try to open up the Booker T. Washington delicatessen in Chinatown and see what happens. So we must connect. We must connect the dots. That must be the movement for our people in the 21st century. We need a lot of us doing a little instead of a few of us doing a lot. We need to get together to get ahead. That is why we must network. That is what we teach at the Power Networking Conference in June in Cleveland. Come and visit with us.
Thank you, George.
Thank you very much.
Please
remember what it said in Isaiah. Remember what it says in Isaiah. And the voice of the Lord said, whom shall go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. We must go, brothers and sisters. We must do this. We must take on the responsibility. We are responsible for our own.
Check out the Ndinkra Symbols Connect the Dots drawing book series. We have 4 books in the series, all with 33 Ndinkra symbols turned into connect the dots puzzles. You have the name of the symbol, the phonetic spelling of the symbol, the meaning of the symbol, and the proverb attached to the symbol, because they usually have one. You can catch them all on Amazon. Enjoy, fun for the kids.
So for me, it's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
We have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think
what they say ain't what it is. That's why we gotta control the narrative. I said, what they say ain't what it is. That's why we gotta control the narrative.
You understand me? It's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
Speaking about kind of how organizations are funded, and I think I spoke about it in our brief meeting before, there is an aspect of self grassroots funding that people have spoken around the need to get government grants and local grants. I spoke about in terms of kind of why we're lacking strong visible leaders. There is an element of, what did I call it, corporate embezzlement that might be subconscious in black leadership.
I remember when you...
No, we're definitely going to get there. But before we get there, right, I just want to say on that last point, because that's basically what we're going to talk about next, right?
Where are we?
So we're still on this defining the issue we have now with leadership. I'm suggesting this values, and I just wanted to stop you there, because I wanted to make a note of this. There's a guy. Have you heard of this guy? Predictive history is predictive. He's a professor. He's gone viral this year.
No,
Chinese American guy, Chinese Canadian guy. He's a professor of history. He's a sick guy. Predictive histories. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm going to show the video to the people. But basically, he just talks about history and socio everything, right? He's a G. He's a good professor still. But he was explaining in one of his lectures about Rome, right? And Rome was at war with Hannibal. Hannibal, one of the greatest generals. At the time, he was the greatest generals of all time. So to this day, people still see Hannibal as the greatest general of all time. He was Hannibal. You've heard of, not Hannibal Lecter. This is a guy from a movie. Hannibal was a general. He's from Carthage. Right. This is an African. He's an African general, one of the most famous. Like I say, some see him as the greatest general ever. Right. He had an army. He was trying to conquer Rome because he saw Rome as a threat. Rome was a war house. They're a war house. They're like the America of the day. They're just military forces. They just go and conquer.
Yeah, so capitalism, imperialism at that point.
Right? So they wasn't really a threat to Carthage at the time, but Hannibal saw the writing on the cards. Them men are going to come for us eventually, so we might as well set it on them early and just get them out, right? And because he was such a great general, he basically went over there and he done them basically 30% or 20% of all Roman men, 30% I think was killed. Rome was on the way out. They was done, right? And logically, anyone would see at that point, you should just kind of white flag it. This is on the papers, it's done. You can't win, right? So, he sent these little messages, asked them to quit. They're like, no, we're not going to quit. We're going to fight to the end. 15 years later, they ended up winning, right? And this professor explains this whole thing, and he notes that throughout history, there have been smaller armies with less wealth, less weaponry, like less sophisticated technology that have won. They've won in the end. And he notes there are three significant factors of that culture, of the people, of those smaller forces that overcome the bigger forces.
Got the Zulus against the British.
They didn't win though. They fought hard, but they didn't win. He's talking about in history, in times like this fight. Like Hannibal had them. He had the numbers. He had the technology. He had them. Right. They won in the end. Right. It's happened before with Muhammad. Like he was a smaller force. Alexander the Great. Actually, more Philip, his dad. And the Persians.
Heard about Alexander.
Yeah, about Alexander the Great. So really and truly, the Persians should have won that. Right. Alexander wasn't a great leader, by the way, but his dad was, right? No, he wasn't. He was just a bit. He was privileged, should I just say? But anyway, he says this is the important thing about this type of army, this smaller army that defeats a more powerful force. There's three factors, because I'm talking about the values that we lack, and I'm looking at this and I'm understanding that these are basically the things that we lack in essence, right? He says one is cohesion, right? Fundamentally, everyone said that. Rasta says this all the time. Unity. We like unity, right? So there's a lack of cohesion, right? If the group are truly united, they really are together. Even if they're a smaller force, it's like, put the fingers together, you make a fist, right? They got to be cohesive. They've got to identify with each other first. That's the first thing. While you're divided, you can't do nothing. Done. Now, the second is discipline. They have to be staunchly disciplined in whatever it is they're trying to achieve now. All right, now they're unified, there's a goal. Okay, we got to really do everything we can to reach that goal. It doesn't even matter if it doesn't look possible. We're just going to do everything we can. That's our only concern, right? And then part of that leads to his third point is devotion. Unwavering devotion to that task. So when these smaller, and he mentions multiple times in history where this has happened, right? With the smaller forces overcome the greater force, which on the paper should have won because they had more money, more manpower, and more weaponry, better technology, and they still lost because that smaller force was more cohesive, there was more united, there was more disciplined.
First thing we need to understand is traditional military doctrine about who wins wars, it's basically wrong. Traditionally, we understand the military about three things. Okay? Manpower. How many soldiers do you have? Technology. How good are your weapons? And resources. How wealthy are you? Okay? Traditionally, we've understood war making. Like, if you're good at war, you will have these three things. Okay? Lots of soldiers, lots of technology, and lots of money. And if you analyze it this way, then Rome should be no match against Carthage, right? Carthage is a lot wealthier. It has more technology. It has the greatest general in Hannibal. But then at the same time, the Athenians should not have been able to defeat the Persians. At the same time, Alexander and the Macedonians should not have been able to defeat the Persians. In fact, throughout human history, we have a lot of instances, cases where smaller armies have been able to defeat much larger armies. So think of Genghis Khan, think of Muhammad, okay? So clearly this is wrong. But if this is wrong, what is a better way to understand military strength? Well, I would argue how strong a military is based on three criteria. The first is cohesion. Do the soldiers like and identify with each other? Are they united? Okay, cohesion. Second is the idea of discipline. How well trained and experienced are they? And the third is devotion. How committed are they to winning? Okay? So if you want to see how powerful a nation is militarily, you have to ask yourself these three questions. Are they cohesive? Are they disciplined? Are they devoted? Okay?
Right? They was and they was just devoted. They didn't care about nothing but winning. Yeah. That was it. Haitian Revolution. Same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
They was together, they was disciplined, and they didn't care about nothing but winning. That's what that matters. They won. Right? And I like that because I've understood this has happened in history, but he simplified why it happened. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Historically, they give different reasons, and he really breaks it down in this video. Anyway, everyone gets to see the video. So that just kind of hems down the kind of value system that is required, I would argue, from a people that want to really change their situation. Do you get what I mean? And fundamentally, if the culture doesn't have these being imbued on us, then we won't have them, you know? Before we move on to the next point, you know, is there a place for these type of racial politics or pro-black collective leadership? We've kind of said there is, right? A lot of us would disagree, and this is the lack of cohesion. We have said there is, but a lot of us would say, "Well, I ain't down with all that." People don't even want to be called black,
which is what we just discussed,
right? You know, arguably there is a crisis, and there was a video. I tried to find. Excuse me. I tried to find the piece from that video that you was referring to, but could you sum up what Dr. Amos Wilson says in that clip that you wanted to refer to?
I mean, to be fair, I think the overarching thing, he speaks to more the lack of discipline in our people. So I think even we look at kind of Amos Wilson, we might not view him as a leader in that sense. We might view him as a kind of an academic, a scholar. But I would argue if we're going to change the culture, then there's a need for us to kind of all self-identify with a common history.
People look at history as some kind of discipline dealing with dates and events. And they look at history as a way of celebrating heroes and so forth. And this society has turned us off to history. And many of us have made the statements, well, I don't want to talk about black history or black power, I want to talk about green power. In the falsification of African consciousness, we try to demonstrate that money and power and economics are intimately related to history. You cannot take away your history and separate yourself from your history and be involved in the earning of wealth and power and the development of power. If history were that unimportant, why is it that the other people have worked so hard to take it from you? Why is it that they work so hard to distort it and change it? They must be very apparent then that history is a key part of a people's culture and behavioral orientation. We demonstrate in that book how a loss of our sense of history has robbed us of a capacity to finance our own economic development as a people. Because the history of your people is not only a memorial to the great people in your past and so forth, but the history of your people is a history of techniques, methods of coping with problems and solving problems. The history of your people passes on to you the learned methods and techniques of dealing with various issues. So when you get to know your history and you get to know the anthropology of your people, you can use that history and anthropology to confront various problems, you see, and you won't have to learn all over again and lose a lot of time. To a good extent, our loss of history in this, particularly as African Americans, has crippled us.
And I think that's why kind of some of the specialisms around some of the teachers that we do have, even though we may be devaluing the work they do by kind of placing them as black leaders, I think the need to have leadership in education, leadership in kind of how we identify as individuals, as families, I think that's important. So I think he was speaking primarily around the lack of discipline in black leadership.
Got you. Say no more, we'll throw that up anyway. Alright, so since we've kind of made all of those points, right, we need to consider what makes a bad leader. What are the issues that we've seen with leaders, right? And we need to know so we can discern, because they've existed, they exist in every group, so we need to be able to discern. One thing we know, unaccountability, if they lack accountability, this can lead. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. This can lead to a mismanagement of power and funds.
Yeah, that comes back to the point I was making around kind of the funding aspect. So I guess transparency, we do lack transparency and financial literacy, but I think subconsciously there's like a level of corporate embezzlement that smaller community-based organizations might engage in, because we feel that we deserve, there's an entitlement that we feel that we deserve the money as a form of reparations. We know that at this point in time, reparation politics isn't where it needs to be. And I think that's another argument specifically around kind of whether or not reparations, like giving people lump sums of money, is going to help solve any issues anyway. But I think there's a part of leadership in small organizations that sees government, local fundings as a form of reparation. And I think at that point, there's a subconscious frailty and let's say vulnerability to mismanaged funds, but justify it subconsciously like I'm deserved this. We've been oppressed, but I've been oppressed, so the funding's going to be mismanaged.
I found that so interesting when you brought that point up, because I didn't really know that. in terms of that's the kind of way that it might be weighed up towards repatriation and payment for what we're owed. I found that quite shocking, but I do understand it to a certain level, because the people that are using the funding are using it to go towards our community and do good things and build us up. But I also back what we were saying to institutions. They put it there as a little thing to say, yeah, here you go, you access it, you still got to do all these different things to get it, but maybe that's a way of relieving their kind of
I think it literally is. I think there was something about the church that they agreed that they had a bad hand in the slave trade, and then they said they're going to put aside a certain amount of money. I can't remember, I saw something like that.
I think I heard about that.
Right, and they're going to put aside a certain amount of money for projects for Afro-Caribbean people as a sort of reparation. It was
exposed that most of the Church of England's wealth came from the slave trade. As a result, the Church Commissioners offered a £100 million fund over 9 years, and this was to address past wrongs of slavery. However, a new report found this was insufficient and told the Church that £1 billion is more suitable, and to speed that up from 9 years to 5 years. They said they should raise the money from wealthy donors, companies and investors. The Church have accepted the report's findings, but they won't commit to the £1 billion target.
And it was framed that way. I heard that language, so you're right about that. But you're saying that, I don't know. I just think that, I think people just want to get what they can get out of the state in general. Like, and they owe us anyway because they tax us, they do all of this stuff.
That's true.
So I don't think
that side of it,
man might have actually used that word, it's a reparation, but I've heard it once, I think. But I've also heard more than once. No, they owe us, man. I'm taking what I can get out of them.
Yeah.
There's just that logic.
In different ways.
Exactly. That's more common. What I will say about that is multiple institutions don't have nothing to do with reparations. They abuse government funds, and I don't know, small grassroots thing, NHS, the spending is
just
crazy
within our community.
Education system, the spending is crazy. Even the military, they waste money. Like, government pots are set to such a way where people will invent things to spend the money on so that the pot doesn't go down. Meanwhile, they're misspending the money in the first place anyway. It's like you don't even need all that money. You just don't want to lose it because it's just weird. So that's how I would counter that. But did you see Lenny Henry? You see what he does?
Yes. I haven't actually read into it. I didn't get a chance to, but I did see something that was placed out there. And I've even, like what you said, within our black community, there's been, well, I saw one person specifically have a backfire towards it, and I didn't go into it. I didn't go down the rabbit hole.
I haven't seen anything other than him. What would they say?
I don't know. Again, as I said, I just the title was like, it was a thing that. I think it was like counteracting Lenny Henry's saying that, what he said about repatriation and the money and stuff.
What did he
what did he say? I haven't seen it.
You ain't heard it. Lenny Henry said, listen, I think he wrote in his book, and he's done a post on that, he's saying it, He said, listen, Caribbean people are owed like 30 trillion. Nah, it's not 30 trillion. He said, listen, you lot owe us 8 trillion. Something like that. It's some big number. I remember a guy, I see a British guy countering it, saying that the British GDP is 3 trillion, and what he's asking for is multiple of that. I remember that it's multiple. I can't remember the number.
So it's unrealistic.
It's not that it's unrealistic. Yeah, I mean, it is unrealistic. Reparations is unrealistic. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to ask for it.
Just a quick comment on Lenny Henry, arguing that Britain should pay, get ready for this, £18 trillion in reparations to black people because of slavery.
So, slavery happened. Then in 1883, the UK government paid out over £20 million, approximately 17 billion in today's money. I'm not that great at maths, give or take, to approximately 46,000 owners of enslaved Africans in the Caribbean. This compensation was deemed for the loss of property. So not humans, but the loss of property. And this was financed by Nathan Mayer Rothschild of the wealthy Rothschild banking family and Moses Montefiore. This was repaid to the families and the descendants of the people who owned slaves over a period of time, which only concluded in 2015. And this money was recouped via British tax contributions. So we have two things to consider here. Firstly, we have the intergenerational wealth that was created by the previous owners who dealt within the trafficking of human life. But also we have the wealthy banking families who were in a privileged position already to loan this money to the British government, developing further intergenerational wealth because there would have been a certain amount of interest generated over a loan that spans that period of years. Yet the call from the Caribbean nations, which is growing, and also from Lenny Henry and others speaking up about reparations, is being frowned on, ridiculed and criticised unjustly without an appropriate lens, considering the financial benefit made to those who were compensated. No amount of money received could ever make up for that part of history. This is and still is one of the biggest crimes humanity has ever seen, although the level of it is often forgotten because it was not documented appropriately. To me, is nonsensical, because this money likely wouldn't go into the pockets of the victims, but the money would more likely be given out via investments within community schemes, within housing schemes and provisions, within education providers, alternative spaces and training, which wouldn't just benefit African and Caribbean communities, but also those who live in close proximity to those communities. Britain is a multicultural society, whether parts of this country want to acknowledge it or not. And so when we're looking at reparations, the racists are like, oh, well, we can't just give free money to black people and brown people and rah, rah, rah. And it's like, you're actually being stupid, because this money wouldn't just go into our pockets. The British government are not going to write a check and be like, here, African and Caribbean people, here's some money for what happened. It would probably more likely go to the communities via charitable donations and investments into facilities. That would be the easiest way that they do that. So again, this is that scarcity mindset that Britain has, where if something is given to one community because of previous wrongs, everyone feels that it's unjust and it's unfair, and there is no challenge of the historical mistakes that were made and the trauma that has been left unacknowledged. And I think that there needs to be a real critical discourse when we're talking about reparations. I feel really uneasy knowing that my tax contributions have gone towards paying colonizers. And I think many other Brits who are open-minded would also feel uncomfortable in the same way. And I think that reparations are a must, because we will not be able to move forward from these issues until there is a formal acknowledgement and restitution is made by the government. And that starts with an acknowledgement and an apology, and then working together with communities so we can build forward together.
Yeah, no, CARICOM in the Caribbean, there's a group of Caribbean islands that are lobbying America for reparations.
To me, the rebuttals to reparations are amazing, because it says to me, all that was done.
Reception's not great in here.
All that was done, right? All the killing, the murder, the rape, the stealing, the robbery, and then the utilization, the neo-colonialism, the abuse of power to manipulate, and all of this stuff, killed leaders, killed presidents, assassination. All of this, we don't owe nothing. You can stand on your hand on heart and say we don't owe nothing for none of that. It is what it is. It just happens. Like, I don't see how you can justify that view,
even academically. Right? Yeah.
Like, the only argument I've ever heard is that we don't know how to pay. That one is there. I get it, because no one has explained in a way to how. And then even after that, I would say
they do know how.
I would say that's nonsense.
Compensation being paid for insurance companies.
I would say even then it's nonsense, because there are ways. But what I would rationalize that, why I say understand, rationalize that, is that whatever number you come up with using all the ways that you already have, the number is well beyond anything you'd be willing to do. When you say you don't know how, it's like what you mean is you're not willing to do what your style would tell you have to do. One more, because this wasn't even in it, but I just always wanted to talk about this, because this one was annoyed me. So I listened to OBC, right?
Oh yeah.
And I even had a debate on one of the shows with one of these people on this point, because I had to call them. I'm like, this is good. Dude, listen to this, right? Because they was talking about. I think I got it somewhere, right? But basically, I made the argument, and this fact. Do you know in WW2, right? You had Caribbean servicemen, right? Yeah, that went for all that died, all that stuff, right? And they was getting paid a third. Either a third or 2/3, but it was like a third of what a white serviceman was getting for fighting the same way, right? So obviously it's racist. So that's not surprising, yeah. But this was obviously spoken about not too long ago. This is about 3 years ago. We was having a discussion. It was all getting reviewed in 2021, something like that. It was all getting reviewed, right? So yeah, there's like, oh yeah, it was bad that we did that. I can't believe it's so bad. We're so good that we're not like that no more. Right, you know what I mean? So the idea was, all right, so why don't you, because they was going through courts to try and get that money to get paid, compensate to the guys that are still alive to this day, or their families, right? And you know what they said? They said, you know what, it's true, but we can't do that because it would be too hard to find them.
It really wouldn't, because they're documenting.
Bruv, you didn't even try and come up with it. You just parred man off. It would be too hard to. They honestly said this wasn't like a person. This was the courts. This was in court. They
So the
ruled
judge
that.
said,
They ruled that was the end of the whole thing. They said, listen, fair, it's true, but you know what? Why? You know why we're not going to pay it? Because it would be too hard to
How
find
can
them.
one person be responsible for saying?
I don't think it would have been. I think it would have been 3 because it's a civil case or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, like, I would have actually preferred them to deny that they owed.
Oh, okay.
Rather than say, yeah, you know what, it is
We
wrong.
owe, but we
can't find them. So you know what, it's just no point. Just forget about it. You know, these times you're talking about 5-6 man. How many of them men are still alive? It's not even going to be that many. Just as a gesture.
And the wickedest thing, every year when you kind of have like the VE day,
was paying them,
they
man.
wheel out all of the people them from the World War II with their medals and how old they are and whatever whatnot.
Yeah.
So you know they know exactly who they are because they get letters every year.
It's the
Saying, turn up to this VE day, turn up to this demonstration.
Bro. Man said we can't find them, so that's why we can't pay them. Yeah, joke. So on reparations,
they've got the names of everyone that was brought over on the shit somewhere. Or something,
but they lose them when it all of a sudden, right? What happened the other day, right? All of a sudden, we don't have your name. You got to leave now.
They got no problem finding Windrush people.
But they do. They do.
Now there's compensation. That's the issue.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying about this, but I mean, we do know that, you know, unaccountability or too much power in one hand where they don't have to be accountable leads to misuse of funds and misuse of power in Africa. There's many examples of that in African leadership to this day. A lot of corruption happens because an individual is unaccountable. And then they hire all their family and friends. So this is something we need to look for when prospective leaders, they have to be accountable. And if they're not willing to be accountable, red flag. We have to point that out, right? If they're the ones that look the part but they've never actually had a practical benefit. Now, looking the part isn't about look, it's about, you know, being able to speak well, look well, somehow come across like they're doing something, but nothing ever got done. Got to be wary of that too, because that's something we can fall for, and it's happened.
Yeah, and I think that's more people more susceptible now because of the online presence of certain people. So people don't necessarily have to have or prove their practical benefits or the achievements because they've got a large following, because they've been able to kind of articulate maybe the issues. And I think it goes back to, for me, the health approach of people that are good at diagnosing issues aren't always good at treating the issues. And I think we've got to be able to separate the differences between them, but also accept that actually we need people to diagnose the issues. We need that, but we also need, as much as we need that, we need people that are able to treat some of the issues, and then that means being more solutions focused.
100%. And then on that, we have to be more aware, because sometimes we got somebody who's good at diagnosing the issue. They might not have a solution, but you can tell their intention with the diagnosis is to help.
Yeah, there's a passion,
right? And then you can.
There's a devotion,
and then
there's one of the key points. Yeah, there's a devotion towards.
There's a devotion to the cause, and all they've got right now is a diagnosis. They can point out the issues, and they're just trying to alert people to the issues that they're aware of. I don't really have a problem with those people, but then you have the other kind of person that might even raise the same point, but you can see there's like a malicious intent. It's just to be critical, and they're not trying to help at all. It's almost, you know, it's to put down, it's to insult. You know, like, I'm going to use the term the coon class. They do this a lot. Like, the kind of that are not really for us as a people. They love to point out the issues, and it isn't to help. They will disguise it as it is to help, like a Charleston white type, or like, and I know people might have a different. But yeah, his type, and even to a degree, Candy Sowens as well. She does it all the time. She points out things, and the thing is, she uses objective truth. I'm not going to say she's lying. She uses objective truth, so she's pointing out an actual thing, but she weaponizes it against.
Yeah, race baiting.
Yeah, and it's weaponized, and it makes us dislike them, and it pulls in favor on the right wing. long short, it pulls in favor, and she knows that. And you know, when they're intelligent enough to know exactly what they're doing and who they're going to garner support from this type of rhetoric. Part of the design, but this is an individual that decided to use this technique because she understands the design. And I know if I say this in this way, these people are going to support me. Yeah, these people ain't going to like me, but they don't have no power. I don't care. I want these people to support me because they do have power. So that's why I'm going to say it this way. So she's diagnosing it. Like I said, diagnosing it is a good thing. But those that are diagnosing it with malicious intent are different to those that are diagnosing it with a sincere goal of just trying to help. I'm just pointing it out. I think someone should, I don't know, but someone should do something about it. I ain't got a problem with them. It's not, they say half of fixing a problem is being able to describe it clearly.
Yeah. Diagnosis.
So these people are important. But like I say, some would diagnose and they're just trying to hurt. They're not really helpful. And
hi everyone, my name's Jacob. Come and explore our fun and engaging early learning children's book, now available on Amazon or on the Jacob and Friends Early Learning website.
Free. Hands up if you think you're a warrior. We are the future. Who made that one? The Star made that one.
And then you mentioned someone more concerned with their brands. You know, when we're talking about the danger of charisma versus influence without responsibility, i.e. someone who's actually doing something responsible, something that just coming across good, a lot of them are just more concerned about their brand.
And I think we had the example of DJ Khaled.
You've had a year of silence from DJ Khaled during...
He's Palestinian, isn't he?
Exactly.
Who's connected to DJ Khaled?
So Haim Saban is a director of Universal Music Group, former Israeli soldier, the largest fundraiser for the Israeli military in the history of the Friends of the IDF, credited with writing Biden's policy on Israel.
Okay.
This is the label DJ Khaled is signed to.
What's his connection to Universal?
He's a director.
He's director?
He's one of the directors.
One of the directors, yeah.
Of Universal Music.
So if Khaled says something, he'll drop him. Maybe, potentially.
Not necessarily drop him, but it would cause potential problems without a doubt.
There's an issue that affects your specific heritage, and
you don't want your brand
you're
to be
more
affected.
you're more committed to your brand and the kind of associations with the brands that you have than you are kind of speaking about issues that affect probably family members.
Yeah. We can definitely, that happens. I mean, Khaled, right? So on that note, basically, I was having a discussion with the bro Rap Raven on his Black Betterment podcast. Check him out if you ever, you know who Rap Raven is.
We know Rap.
Yeah, so you listen to his podcast?
I've listened to it when it first come out.
Yeah, some good discussions. I was on one of these shows, and his topic was, should black people be supporting the Palestinians, the Palestine struggle? Should we be commentating, basically? Should we be out there protesting all these things? If Palestinians, i.e. DJ Khaled, Gigi Hadid, are not. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so the picture I'm trying to paint is, as I'm looking through these Palestinian celebrities, they're very cautious with their words. If anything, they're definitely not jumping out in front of the traffic. I would always recommend let the people who are within the community lead, rather than having black people really going full out on the limb, losing sponsorship deals and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, some things are worth boycotting or losing over principles, but I think the culture of black people just leading in these things or just doing extra, I think it needs to be reviewed, especially unfortunately, and I'm not going to play it, just it's that double kind of whammy you go through where you have conflict in the Middle East, you have Israel and Palestinians, and you have Afro-Palestinians who get double jeopardy. Then you get like Ethiopian Israelis who get double jeopardy, and it is a very interesting thing. So yeah, I just think it's something that I think So when I was on the panel, am I going somewhere with this, or am I just maybe I'm swinging in the darker side? What do you reckon about the strategy?
You're on something, because we have to be very careful how we tackle this topic. It's a way where you said it yourself, and there's original Palestinians, the black ones, that are getting oppressed out there. That's their land. You know what I mean? And there's loads of freedom. Like, for example, Fatima al-Badawi, she's a black Palestinian, and she's done a lot of work over there. But I always ask this question, how is it possible for the white Palestinians to be complaining about the white Israelis and that, but they still have time to oppress the black Palestinians? I've always kind of asked myself that and asked others, and I never get a great answer. If you're going through oppression, how do you have time to oppress other people? Do you understand? So, black people, be very careful how you word things, but it's not our war, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And I know that land very well. You know what I mean? It's no secret. But, there's original black inhabitants there, and they're catching hell, man. They're getting it from both sides. So, what do we do about that?
Yeah, it's a very important topic. It's a very touchy topic, because obviously, naturally, you're seeing the Palestinians suffering at the hands of the Israeli government, and naturally, from human to human, you want to reach out, but you also have to observe how are other Palestinians and Arab community reacting, and should you go above them? And also, what is the history of how black people are treated in that region in general?
And that was his thing. And my point was that it is wrong. There was two levels when it comes to this type of charismatic person. One, it is wrong to assume that this celebrity, this popular person, is a representative of the political views of a group of people. He's an entertainer. It doesn't matter what he says politically, and you shouldn't take him not speaking politically about what's going on in Palestine for you to use that as an example of what Palestinian people do in terms of politics. So that's because Khalid don't support it, I'm not going to support it. Like, he's Palestinian.
Yeah, that's wild. What's wrong is wrong. Wild. Yeah, that's wrong. What's wrong is wrong.
And he's a celebrity. He's just a celebrity. Why should his view influence whether you think it's right?
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community, and have been made celebrities, and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
This is when we kind of, it's a fine line, because actually, as much as we shouldn't expect our celebrities to be political commentators, I think they should have a responsibility to use their platform where I mean, it's individual's choice, but I think we shouldn't be wrong to expect them at points to use their popularity to highlight or bring awareness to certain issues. I don't think that's a wrong thing.
I think,
especially that we spoke about
based
diagnosis
on
and
what they
treatment.
want. I don't think it should be automatic. I do get it, but I think that the issues that they want to bring up on their platform, it shouldn't be on behalf of other things.
Yeah, they're not representative of any
That's
political
it.
class
So
or
it's
any group
it's
of people.
Personal. Again, I do get what you're saying in terms of, like, you know, if there's something out there that needs to be highlighted and aware that these people have got the platforms to bring it. But again, it's individual, I think.
Because in the same way, we will have organisations that will pay celebrities
to do that,
to promote certain things. So I think that's the only way we counter some of these narratives. I mean, the same we had it with the vaccines. The amount of celebrities that were paid to kind of push the vaccine, and we didn't have as many. We didn't have as many celebrities pushing the anti-vax movement.
It was mad. So I am saying he should, because right is right, wrong is wrong. So morally, he should say something, but we shouldn't expect him to say something. These are two different things. The expectation is mad because, again, we should understand he's just an entertainer. Like,
oh, that's where you lot were saying morally.
Because morally is what's going on over there is crazy, and you would think anybody would think it's crazy. Now, if you're a Palestinian, you got to think probably got family out there. That the whole place has been mashed down. And then you told me this. I didn't even know that, but he acknowledged that
he made a statement. What was his statement? He admitted that while he wants to use his platform, doing so could risk his endorsements, partnerships, and finally the lifestyle that he's built.
Look at that. So
he said that
basically saying, I know it's wrong, and I know I should say something, but I'm not going to say something because I don't want to lose money. He's a multi-millionaire already. He don't need more money, bro. Yeah. But big man thing, in 10 years, like 3 more Bugattis or doing the right thing, according to him, not according to me or you. He's basically acknowledging he knows it's wrong and he knows he should say something, but he just don't want to lose money, right? So this leads back to what we said, the value system that we have, because the important thing for me, why that example is important, because I think everybody will acknowledge what we just seen there is just sad, right? That's just not what a man or any human should be happy or calm with as a reality for their behavior. But I would say, as a community, as people, definitely as business people, and in our music, as musicians in the black community, we echo that sentiment. Right? I'll reference a bouncer clip. I'm gonna try to find it. It's gonna be hard because man's got hella clips to find this one time he said this. But he mentions 3 things because he's always referencing the culture. Now, the thing about when he says the culture, what he really means is pop culture.
Popular culture.
And what he really means is pop culture that makes money. That's really what he means. So really he just means media industry culture. That's really what he's referencing. But he doesn't say that. He says the culture. And everyone seems to get along with that. And what he says to, if you want to be part of the culture and you want to be successful, because that's the only goal of the culture. Right? Because again, he's not really culture. It's about media industry. It's about making money. But if you want to be successful in the culture, you got to avoid 3 topics. You got to avoid race, you got to avoid religion, and you got to avoid talking about the Jews. I don't even know. I don't even feel comfortable saying that. No, that's how powerful
that's how
what he's saying is.
That's
because
the mind thing.
You feel like this is the worst bit. So he's saying that because again, it's about success.
Now,
imagine then this Palestinian conflict essentially involves all those 3. Right? So do you get what I'm trying to say? So now, so say there's something going on real serious in the world, like there is in Palestine, and it involves these 3 things that don't make you money, actually are going to help to make you lose money. We are all incentivized to not, if you're part of the culture, we're not supposed to talk about it. That's what Khaled does. And again, Bouncer is not speaking for the culture, but he's speaking for the culture. All he's doing is saying what we all kind of know. He's just putting words to it. He's not a rep. You know what I mean? He's not telling us what we have to do. He's just pointing out how it moves. That's how it moves. How it works. And I've heard so many artists say, I'm not talking about all these socio-political black people. That's not going to make the money. Well, you know what's going to make the money? I'll get him down, chap. We know the lingo that gets money. We're very happy with all of that. It doesn't hurt the community. It does nothing. I'm not a role model. All of these things. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So we're very happy with the negative consequences of the wordings that we use. as long as we get paid, and we're very happy to not say things that are positive and are right or righteous or morally correct
because it might
get us not paid.
Yeah.
So we do what Khalid does as a community in our entertainment, just on that level. We do it all the time.
And in that respect, big up like people like George the Poet, Akala, Low Key,
Bad Boy,
people that do. But arguably they would have experienced less commercial and less financial compensation for being upfront about those views.
Definitely.
I would follow that they knew that going in. They said, listen, I know this ain't charting. If it charted, what the hell? They would have been shocked, scratching their head. I am not making this to chart or mash peas because I know that's not how this thing works. I know that. Like anyone that does that type of music knows that. They really understand because again, that's
George
how
the Poet
it's
has been heavily supported by the BBC though.
Yeah, but I would argue he's really good. One is spoken word, 2, and 3, I would still say he himself has this same psychology of, brother, I'm just gonna make what I think is right, the best, and I don't expect this to go. But if it does, I'm happy. Don't get me wrong, I want it to.
And I'm gonna say there's always got to be one that they kind of look through.
Yeah, that's a real fact right there. They let one go because then it makes it will look fair and unbiased.
And he is a nice man.
He's really good.
He's
unthreatening.
Nice
He's
not
threatening.
He's not threatening. Exactly, that's what they look at as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that's how the thing works. You're right. You just gotta let one through. Even as artists have the same logic within their catalog. They'll do their one conscious tune.
One track.
I done my tune. What do you mean? Look, listen, I done it. Done. Everything else can be track.
We like that tune.
We like that tune. I done my conscious thing. Them man don't know about that. I do this, but then they go back to, you know what I mean? No one's gonna stay on that. Well, them man that you mentioned, that they stay on that page. And again, they sacrifice commercial success to do that.
That's what they do.
Right?
Yeah.
And they know that. They go in there knowing that that's basically what's gonna happen. Or I would argue, George the Poet, I would argue he knows he could have got more commercial success talking different. He's skilled enough to make something more commercially successful, even as a ghostwriter, right? But he's not. He's standing up business. He's keeping his stuff political, which is always going to make his purse less. There's no way it's not going to make you as successful as other stuff. It's just not.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I would challenge in relation to celebrity leadership is, how do you make it stick? And how do celebrities ensure that they're not just raising expectation and then creating dissonance because nothing happens?
It's about being strategic. It's about doing their homework. And also it's about passing the mic, right? So they may be able to raise awareness, but if they don't have the knowledge of a particular issue in depth, then it's about finding people that can either educate them or to share the platform with, so that, like we said, real plans can be made and we can have an action instead of just raising it, jumping on the bandwagon and moving forward. So I'm part of a collective called African Caribbean Research Collective. And there's many of us within that collective who have done a lot of work about inequalities, politics, as well as scientists, right? So someone like Reggie Yates, which is already done by pointing to this movement and this research, he can strengthen it by then calling on other people that have really done the work and having more conversations and seeing what else can be done.
So I really like that idea, and I want to just, unravel that a little bit more about passing the mic, because I think it's such a great metaphor. And so for me, passing the mic would mean about really thinking about how we change the social, the political, the cultural, the economic demographics of leadership, and we think of the spaces in which leadership resides. So we don't go back to what I call the old norm and only think of leadership in terms of status and role, but think about leadership as a moving entity. Leadership, it should be about voice, it should be about influence, it should be about authority, and not to think of power as a dirty word, because actually to have power, someone has to give it to you, has to give you license to have it.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting what you said about power is about what someone has given to you, because just historically speaking, within Black communities, you'd have to take power in order to be heard and to live, right? And I think there's something about this new generation of millennials and Gen Zs, like in the sense where we're no longer waiting for those in power in terms of, you know, the politicians or other leaders in the usual sense to include us. And I just think as well that while Black celebrities and Black personalities have the platform, even within communities, you have community heroes and community leaders, right? You have people that, the grassroots, who have maybe emboldened these Black celebrities and supported these Black celebrities to get to where they are.
Yeah, we shouldn't really be looking to celebrities for our political guidance, right?
But you've got one of these last points of not being misled by charisma, and I think charisma is a powerful currency in the online world. Like we want to call it clout. We want to call it clout.
Oh, it leads to clout.
Or influence. Charisma is a powerful currency, and I think how much responsibility do people with charisma have to be more altruistic or more about the people, when actually we're living in a world where attention is the new currency. So as long as you're garnering a certain amount of attention, you might feel like you're being successful. Again, with the large generation that grew up without social media.
Yeah.
So it's even difficult for people that are under 30 maybe to even appreciate the respecting or placing value on people who do things as opposed to people that say things. They're bombarded
by people successful
by saying
that.
things.
By saying,
It's difficult.
The values of
but again, it comes back to education. We need to educate our young people and being able to make these discernments. It's hard. It's difficult enough for us to discern.
And they never even had a different version of this.
So
it all goes back to the value, because if the value is just being charismatic gets you paid, that's what I'm going to do, bro. Why should I represent something that don't get me paid? But yeah, all of this, right, can damage the view. Like, we're going to go to our Umar case study, right? So, you know, this charisma and being able to garner attention and just being able to garner, like, clout along the short by being charismatic, saying powerful things, rage baiting, all these things that we just doing, all these things can give someone this notoriety.